I've spent a decade taking a bite out of conspiracy theories, unraveling urban legends, and grappling with worldwide top secret issues.
I've even racked up some of their awards.
Wow, I mean, first of all, what a question.
Journalism is about telling the truth, all while ferreting out the bottom line.
I'm a Harrison Hellraiser.
With me, Cary Harrison, as your guide.
Rethinking Heroes, Life After the Military with Cary Harrison.
On January 20th, 1968, in the shadow of a river, deep within the demilitarized zone, an unfolding story of valor and sacrifice began. Leading a reconnaissance force, a young Marine in Vietnam found himself and his squad in a dire confrontation with the formidable Viet Cong forces, who were laying siege to the village below. Amidst the chaos, the Marine, while attempting to bridge the divide and aid the suffering South Vietnamese unit, that Marine came under a hail of enemy fire. In the span of heartbeats, his world was changed forever. He was initially struck in the foot, a severe injury that tore away part of his heel. Then the onslaught continued, with a second shot piercing his shoulder, collapsing his lung, and severing his spinal cord. He found himself abandoned by many, but not by all. You see, a fellow Marine braved the storm of bullets, sacrificing his own life in the endeavor to rescue this Marine. It was in this moment of profound brotherhood and heroism that Ron Kovic's journey to safety began. Ron was carried through a gauntlet of enemy fire, only to be followed by a harrowing week in intensive care in Da Nang. The experience left him paralyzed from the chest down, a stark remembrance of the sacrifices laid upon the battlefield. And for Ron's extraordinary heroism in battle, he was awarded the Bronze Star with Combat V and the Purple Heart, emblems of courage and the price of freedom. His best-selling 1976 memoir, Born on the 4th of July, was adapted into an Oscar-winning film starring Tom Cruise as Ron Kovic. And today, Ron is considered one of America's greatest leading advocates for veterans and voices for peace. And he's just completed his Vietnam trilogy with A Dangerous Country, an American Elegy, which contains Kovic's never-before-revealed Vietnam diary. Starting as a patriotic young soldier with a strong moral and religious conscience, later then a political awakening while confined to a wheelchair following his horrific injuries. On the brink of suicide, Ron Kovic experienced a powerful epiphany that gave him a reason and purpose to live, a renewed faith, and a strength to carry on, an inspirational story of a survivor finding a way to rise above his depression and despair, forgiving his enemies and himself, and growing deeply committed to a new life. Ron Kovic, I want to welcome you.
Thank you. It's an honor to be with you today, and I'm sure we're going to have a great time.
We are, and I appreciate not only your heroism, but the fact that you have, as many of us do, turned into a different person. The one we started with gets upgraded, goes from coach to business class, and you have touched tens of millions of people who will never meet you, but they know you already, though you may not know them. Let's go back to when you first heard about the Vietnam War and you knew you were going to get drafted and would be going. What emotions did you experience then?
Well, Cary, first of all, I was never drafted. I volunteered for the Marine Corps. I'd grown up during the 50s, John Wayne and Audie Murphy's To Hell and Back. And I remember being inspired by John F. Kennedy's inaugural speech, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. So I volunteered. My uncle had been a Marine. Both of my uncles had been Marines in World War II in Korea, and I couldn't wait to join the Marine Corps. So it was not a draft. I was very motivated. I wanted to serve my country. I was born on the 4th of July, and actually, I couldn't wait to join the Marine Corps. I had no idea what it was going to be like, but nonetheless, I joined wanting to serve my country as President Kennedy had asked us to do.
And so you did that. And then, of course, you were in the war, which was completely different from anybody's worst imagination. You suffered injuries, returned home, and then your perspective on a war changed. War period.
Yeah, it didn't happen overnight, but it was a slow evolution. I mean, I was initially, when I was wounded, I was in the intensive care ward in Da Nang, Vietnam. From there, I went to Yokosuka Naval Hospital in Japan. I spent about a week or two there, and I realized the doctor said I would be paralyzed from my mid-chest down for the rest of my life. Actually, at that moment, I felt grateful that I had survived, that I was alive. That day that I was wounded, I was leading my squad. There were about 11 other men. It was not just me that day, but others who went with me that day. And when I went to Japan, eventually I spent about 2 weeks in the intensive care ward in Japan, and went back to the United States, to the St. Albans Naval Hospital on Long Island, with other combat Marines, wounded combat Marines, and I was in that particular hospital for about a month. And eventually I was sent to the Bronx Veterans Hospital in Bronx, New York. I was able to see my parents for the first time. And I stayed in that hospital. I wrote about that hospital in Born on the 4th of July, as well as Oliver Stone depicted in the movie Born on the 4th of July. It was overcrowded conditions, rats on the ward. It was not the best environment for a wounded veteran to come home to, but I tried my best. I did my best, and it was difficult at first. But once again, initially, I was grateful to still be alive and to have survived that day. It was a difficult day for me to be dragged off that field, but I was able to come home, and I was determined to make a life of it.
And now, Ron Kovic, you have completed your trilogy, your Vietnam trilogy, and you have revealed a diary that none of us really knew you had, that talks about what most of us live, upright human mammals deal with, which is guilt and shame about virtually everything in the world. But you had one specific instance in this where you had the accidental killing of a fellow Marine, which was just as crippling as your physical injuries.
It was devastating. We were in a heavy firefight, and it was difficult to tell who the enemy was. And I wrote about it as honestly and as graphically as possible. I initially wrote about it in Born on the 4th of July, but I wrote about it in great detail in my last book, the book that I just completed, A Dangerous Country, and it affected me deeply, changed my life profoundly. Not only was I paralyzed from my mid-chest down, but I had taken the life of another man, an American, one of my own men, and it was very difficult to live with. I remember writing in A Dangerous Country that I went back to my tent or my hooch that night, and I sat with the rain pouring down on the corrugated roof of our hut, and I thought of killing myself. I remember pointing the M14 rifle between my eyes and came very close to pulling the trigger or pushing the trigger with my toe. And at the last minute, I decided I wanted to live, and I've been thankful for that ever since.
Let's talk for a little bit about epiphanies, because a lot of people feel so hopeless and they don't see the light at the end of the tunnel. And, you know, your story is, should we say, technicolor compared to a lot of people's charcoal or watercolor version. Yet you had this epiphany, a powerful epiphany that gave you a reason and a purpose to live, to stay alive, and to do something. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I had lost my faith. I grew up Catholic. Actually, when I was 17 years old, I wanted to be a priest. I wanted to be a Catholic priest. I grew up in a very religious family, very Catholic family. We had holy water. Just as you came into the house, in my house in Massapequa, Long Island, you would always dip your hand in the holy water and make the sign of the cross. So my mother and my father were very committed to their faith. And as you see in the diary, if you read the diary, the part one of the book, I believe very strongly. But as is in many wars, World War I, World War II, the cataclysm of the war, the shock of being in a war, and also added to that being wounded, in my case, a devastating wound, there was a shattering of my faith, not only my faith in God, my faith in my country, but there's a line in the book, after the war, there was no God, and for him, there was no country anymore. That's how I felt. I felt I had lost all of my values, and for not just myself, but I think many young men, soldiers, Marines, who come back from these conflicts, not just Americans, but whether it be in Ukraine or anywhere where wars go on, you're never quite the same. Your value system, your faith, it often is shattered, and you have to rebuild. You have to find it again. I was very lost for a long time, and eventually I began to find that faith, not by going back to the Catholic Church, not going back to any church in particular, but there were some really dark times in my rehabilitation, in my attempt to come home from the war. There were periods when I was very depressed, when I suffered from post-traumatic stress disorder, when I had constant nightmares, when I had anxiety attacks. I don't know how I made it through that emotional turmoil those years. I could not sleep at night. I had terrible insomnia. I was tormented emotionally, not just paralyzed. I had to deal with that every day, but also sometimes I rarely slept at all at night, and I just tried to survive from one day to the next. It was not easy. It took many, many years for me to even be able to sleep normally at night. I don't know how I made it through those years. I don't know, but eventually, if I have anything to share with those who might be going through difficult times right now, the one thing I would say to them today would be never, never give up. Don't give up. Just no matter how impossible it seems, no matter how painful you may be in emotionally, physically right now, don't give up. Continue on. And if you continue on, at least there may be the possibility that you can emerge from this darkness and this difficulty, and you can come through these hard times. That's the one thing, the most important thing I would share with anyone who's suffering right now would be don't give up. Just hang in there another day and another day and another day, and hopefully the skies will clear.
It sounds, Ron Kovic, like you're talking about having a purpose-driven life, which is something that you really recreated for yourself in such a standout way that it ends up being portrayed by Tom Cruise. There's all these awards given. You've written 3 books now, and it really changed the face of how we look at war. And the whole Vietnam era just didn't vanish away into the clouds as sort of a bad memory, but you kept it alive. And right now we've got Vietnam War vets listening. We've got Korean War vets listening. Probably not any more World War II vets, but certainly tens of thousands, if not millions of people who can relate to your battle. We're talking to Ron Kovic. He did serve 2 tours of duty during the Vietnam War and has been in a wheelchair ever since. The Oliver Stone, Tom Cruise Academy Award-winning film Born on the 4th of July was based on Ron Kovic's best-selling memoir. And today, Ron is known as one of the country's most powerful and passionate pro-veteran voices for peace, and has completed his Vietnam trilogy with a poignant, inspiring, and deeply personal elegy to America. And Ron, I met you back in 2007. I had put together a parade for world peace, and we brought in Arun Gandhi, Mahatma Gandhi's surviving grandson, and you were there.
That was in L.A. Muhammad.
Yes.
No, that was Gandhi. Yeah.
Yes, it was Arun Gandhi.
I remember that day.
Yes, and we met briefly then, but you were swarmed with people. So I got to extend a hand, shake yours for 1/10 of a millionth of a second. So really, this is the first time we're meeting. And I'm thrilled that you finished this trilogy and that you're talking honestly and bravely, because it really helps people when they don't feel alone. And feeling alone is the worst part of it all, isn't it?
No, you've got to try to trust. You've got to try to believe. There's a world out there, and there are people who do care. And I don't think I would have made it without the friends and the people who came along, like angels, in the night. They came when I needed them most. A phone call to a friend when I was about to give up. It's amazing how small things like that can change your life, can move you away from wanting to give up to maybe living another day or giving it another chance. I can't emphasize enough the importance to not give up. I committed my life to finding an alternative to war, and an alternative to finding other ways to solve our problems through diplomatic means, through seeking common ground, just respecting each other as human beings. And I think it's so important, especially, in the times we're living right now, where war continues to go on, whether it be in the Gaza, in Israel, or whether it be in the Ukraine with the Russians or whatever. We're all human beings, and we've got to find to live together. We've got to, my country, America, we've got to learn to heal from this war and come together. And if I represent anything, let me represent peace and nonviolence. Let my life and my journey and my struggle, my journey and struggle to represent peace and nonviolence and an alternative to this type of behavior, to pulling the trigger, to dropping the bombs, to trying with all we can to imagine a better world. You know, I think I'd rather have my life stand for that than anything that I can think of. Nonviolence and an alternative to war. You know, I would have probably wanted to try something like that, but in the end, I decided to write books. I decided to write because I'd always loved to write ever since I was in high school, whether I was writing poetry in study hall or I always seemed to have a way with words. My mother came from an Irish Catholic family and my father Yugoslavian, but I don't know. I wanted to go back to something quiet, peaceful, where I at least where I was not fighting another war or fighting against another human being, you know.
Well, at least you're a good writer. Otherwise, you probably wouldn't be here today. So just so you know, you're that good. Let's talk for just a second about your inspiring other veterans or just regular people to have some hope. And they may not know, well, I just don't see any. So how do I have something I don't see? You had to create hope when you were sitting there in a vacuum. Can you sort of walk us through how somebody might do that?
Well, I mean, even in the darkness, you have to step forward. And sometimes, I mean, you have to have a certain faith that there is light, you know, light at the end of the tunnel, as they say, and that there will be a better day. You just have to keep moving forward and not give up. Again, I go back to that again, not to give up. Don't give up. You know, I think of, I guess it was Winston Churchill during World War II. Never, never, never give up. The British never giving up when all the odds seemed against them. You know, I don't know why. There were times when I came very close to giving up. When I came very close to saying that I've had enough of this, but the one thing that kept me going was I was curious. I had an imagination. I always had an imagination as a kid, as a boy. And I remember in the early years when I was in Massapequa, and I just gotten out of the Bronx VA hospital, and it was difficult coming home, going back to the room I'd grown up in as a boy, and all of a sudden my body was gone, and I was waking up every morning and suddenly realizing that I no longer had anything from my mid-chest down. I would wake up in the morning and it would be a sudden awareness that, I had just really lost a lot of myself. And it was hard at first. And I remember when I would get up in the mornings, I would drag myself into that wheelchair. And first thing I'd do is I'd go over to the bathroom bowl. I'd stick my finger down my throat and make myself throw up. Retch, because I had this terrible anxiety inside of me. I wanted to scream every morning that I woke up. And I would wake up frightened, and I would wake up with this terrible anxiety. And not just myself, but so many other young men and women who come back from these conflicts, those especially who experience the intensity of combat. They come back with these nightmares and anxiety attacks. You cannot come back from this intense experience and be just the person that left, the young man who once grew up in that room. No, you're profoundly changed forever. So to just continue on, to push forward, and I remember thinking to myself in my room, if I don't give up right now, if I just hang in there, if I just maybe wait another month, another week, another month, another year, perhaps there'll be a turning point somewhere out there where things will get better, and things will not always be as bad and as dark and as depressing and as difficult and as frustrating as they seem to be at this particular moment. If you keep going forward, I thought to myself, if I don't give up, I'm increasing the possibility that possibly somewhere out there, there'll be a better day. And for me, I never imagined that the better day for me would be a book being reviewed on the front page of the Sunday New York Times Book Review and getting a rave review. I would have never imagined that a movie star would play my life story, Tom Cruise.
And if you get to pick one, that would be the right one to pick.
Well, Tom was great to work with, and I was honored. And it's, sometimes I think, Cary, it's like a dream that maybe I'm still in that dream. I don't know, but it's quite a dream. And it's an American dream. It certainly is. I think I'm very grateful. I feel very humbled by what happened to me. I wish it could happen to every veteran who came home from war. But I don't know. I felt so devastated at first, so overwhelmed by physically, emotionally, by what happened to me. And I am so grateful to be alive. I'm so thankful for every day. Life is so precious to me. And it's been that way for quite a while now. Life is very precious. It's a gift. And I want to make the days that remain in this time on this earth, this precious earth, I want them to count. I want to be able to give back, contribute. And I think hopefully I've done that with the Vietnam trilogy that I've just completed. I want people to read these books. I want them to understand, at least from my perspective, what war was like for me, so that hopefully they can begin to imagine a better way to solve our problems, a better way to deal with these conflicts.
Let's end with talking about the importance of community and also the willingness to be able to ask for help, which seems impossible for a lot of people because we're raised in a culture where we don't ask for help. Pull yourself up by your bootstraps, do it on your own. But really, the way ahead is with community and getting help. And people actually like helping each other. That's part of the solution, isn't it?
Yeah, you're doing a favor for someone else when you ask for help. You are really. You don't recognize it at first, but people want to help and they want to assist and people are moved by people who are struggling to stay in this world. Believe me, whether it be psychologically, emotionally, or physically, people do care. They do care, and they're waiting out there. They're waiting to help you. So you must reach out. And I remember how difficult it was for me and how frustrating. And I grew up in that American culture, John Wayne type of culture. Pull yourself up from your bootstraps. But what do you do when you have no bootstraps? What do you do when you're naked and alone and afraid in that darkness in that room early in the morning? How do you handle that? You just keep going. I'm saying that again and again today, but I mean it. You keep going. You keep persisting. You don't give up. You imagine a better day, and you imagine that you're going to move through this, and something wonderful, hopefully, something great is going to happen to you if you just don't give up. There's something wonderful. Just as there may be something painful waiting out there, I think we all need to also believe that something really miraculous may be waiting for us out there, something that we don't even expect, don't even imagine, something that we can't see at this particular moment that's going to come our way, that's going to change our life, that's going to give us hope. Hope is so important, hope and faith, yeah.
I have no idea how all of this is going to shake out. You've been there. You remember what the politics were like above at the time, but I don't know that we've ever seen this kind of madness from all parts, whether it's in Hungary, Poland, Russia, the United States, with the Tangerine Man, and just all of them kumbayaing in a giant, psychotic, Himmler-esque dance together.
Well said. Very articulate and beautifully said. But it's time we come together, time we believe we can make a difference, time believe that this is not going to take us down. We're going to move through this dark period also, and we're going to move toward a brighter day. Together we will do it. If I have any purpose in life, it's to continue to move forward and to hold that banner up high of peace, nonviolence, and hope for our future. It's great meeting you and seeing you again. It was great, I'm sure, meeting you on the street that day. And that was a beautiful day, quite a few years ago. Yeah.
Yeah, I was on Air America at the time, and that was an idea, was to get 10,000 listeners to show up, storm Hollywood Boulevard, and then end up at the steps of CNN, because they weren't going to come out and cover the entire middle of the city being flooded by people. They were not interested. So we put Daryl Hannah in the very front, dumped some ice water on her chest, turned her into a wet T-shirt. They suddenly came down the elevator, and this 10,000 people were suddenly interesting. Amazing.
You should write books. You're a great storyteller. You should be writing books as well.
All right. Well, I'm going to probably transcribe these shows, because that would be the easier, softer way.
That would be great.
Well, I appreciate it, my friend. Thank you so much, Ron, and looking forward to staying connected, okay?
My best to you and all my veteran brothers and sisters.
Ron Kovic served 2 tours of duty during the Vietnam War, has been in a wheelchair ever since. The Oliver Stone Tom Cruise Academy Award-winning film Born on the 4th of July was based on Kovic's best-selling memoir. And today, Ron is known as one of the country's most powerful and passionate pro-veteran voices for peace, and has completed his Vietnam trilogy with a poignant, inspiring, and deeply personal elegy to America. Cary Harris with you. Thank you for joining us. Back in a flash.
Rethinking Heroes with Cary Harrison. Life after the military. RethinkingHeroes.com.
Attention homeowners. Do you have a house that's in need of serious repairs? Do you have tenants that never seem to make their monthly payments? Do you have code violations, past due taxes, or maintenance costs you just can't afford? Then call our special home buying hotline right now. We specialize in buying any home, no matter the situation. Turn that problem property into cash today. It's just that simple. One call and you can get rid of that home headache forever. We can buy your home with instant closings, instant cash, and huge savings. Plus, there's no realtor fees, no listing fees, and no repair costs. Just cash in your hands for that painful property. We're buying a few more homes in your neighborhood right now, so take advantage of this cash offer and call the number on your screen today.
Looking to earn more money online? Well, meet Kartra, that's Kartra, the ultimate all-in-one business platform that makes it easier than ever to boost your income. With Kartra, creators, coaches, and experts can turn their knowledge and services into profits. You can create pages and funnels that attract customers, build memberships that share your knowledge, automate your business to free up your time, and so much more. Kartra has every tool you need to grow your business in one place. And the best part? It's super affordable and easy to use. Are you ready to streamline and scale? Well, head on over to rethinkingheroes.com/money for a free 30-day trial. That's rethinkingheroes.com/money for a free 30-day trial.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call Low Cost Airlines. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call now.
Listen, well, it's still legal.
Rethinking Heroes with Cary Harrison. RethinkingHeroes.com.
Okay. I want to welcome you to a journey through the lessons learned in the crucibles of war by John Kirbow, a post-9/11 war veteran with a specialty in PSYOPS for psychological operations, along with being a space Power Ranger. That's for real, not like a cartoon. They really are real ones, and the DOD. But not all spooks are like what you see in movies and TV. Many of them are willing to share their training and their insights, and each of us can feel empowered in our own worlds. Our battlegrounds abroad have taught us vital strategies in counterinsurgence and counter-extremism and information warfare. And our own Supreme Court, SCOTUS, or as I like to pronounce it now, SCROTUS, because of its low-hanging morality, that Supreme Court has ruled that every president has the right to one free insurrection. I guess you have to be a sitting president to be allowed that, not the one that may be coming up next or may have been in the past. My ancestors are puking in their dust as we speak out. But what does this mean in a country in which grown men dress as elk and storm the Capitol building? It's like kindergartners with assault weapons. Actually, not too impossible since frozen embryos are now functioning humans in Alabama, which means they probably have Second Amendment rights too. I can't help being snide. I'm so sorry. If you want to watch this and enjoy what it looks like, go to rethinkingheroes.com, where we are live streaming all the video of these shows right here, right now. But let's apply these lessons on our home turf, shall we? Let's address the urgent challenges of domestic extremism. John Kirbow is a former CIA PSYOPS counterintelligence officer. We're now going to learn about the secret web of information warfare and propaganda and how the tactics of psychological warfare are designed to manipulate our perceptions and psychological vulnerabilities, plus insights from the front line on combating the rise of militant ideologies and his view for a path towards peace by understanding and resolving the root causes of discontent. Finally, John is going to speak directly to our veterans who have been increasingly targeted by extremist narratives, urging a reclaim. He's urging a reclaim of true patriotism for the common good and warrior ethos from the grips of current domestic fanaticism. And that's code for you know what? John Kirbow's voice is a call to unity and fortifying our defense against radicalization to build bridges of understanding in a nation too often divided. With us, John Kirbow, specialist in information warfare and counterinsurgency, having served in Iraq via the U.S. Army and Afghanistan via the DoD. His deep training in what is known as human terrain analysis in Afghanistan is committed to helping our veterans find meaningful pathways to continue to serve here at home, adapting their skills in the much needed ways we all need. John Kirbow, welcome to Rethinking Heroes.
Thanks, Cary. And I appreciate that you took my Space Force Power Ranger joke seriously. I was obviously kidding. I was never CIA, never a counterintelligence officer, but the rest of that should be accurate. But yeah.
Well, go ahead and clear that up because I just took what you wrote, joke or not. So let's let the audience sit on it. That'll help.
Yeah, no. So the Space Force is newly created. I recently worked with them in Germany a little bit. And so there's a lot of jokes about, I'm a Power Ranger, Space Force, stolen valor. People tend to throw around, lots of memes of humor in the veteran community because a lot of people claim to be different types of veterans. But the wider theme here, I think, is that a lot of our love for the military and the ideals behind military service, the uniform, the flag, a lot of these ideals have been weaponized, and our love for the military and veterans has been weaponized to a degree by certain extremist narratives that I think are a radical departure from our founding values and from the true meaning of patriotism and military service. And that's what I want to do, is build a bridge with people, especially conservatives, because this doesn't need to be a zero-sum game. It doesn't need to be a left versus right binary, us versus them. You could be a patriot and love America and seek out a kind of camaraderie and warrior ethos without joining an extremist militia. And I think driving that wedge is something veterans are in a good position to do. And that's partly why I wrote the book.
Well, I thank you for that. And being in the center, as I am, also my job makes me an independent. My ancestors, having signed the Declaration of Independence, having also framed the Constitution, I can tell you we were not missing teeth and wearing MAGA hats. Not at all. Their overarching constant reminder in the Constitution was the Commonwealth, the commons, the commons, the commons. We share, we the people, not we the 14 people sitting over in the corner. We, all of the people, sure, not unveiled successfully. Hundreds of years of naughty behavior. But the spirit is there. And that's what you're speaking to, is that we're now in crazy land. And it's not even embarrassing for someone from, say, the White House or the Capitol building to say outrageous things that are literally are not true. Like, imagine the president telling you to blow bleach up your rear end to kill a virus. Do you know how many people died that did that? A lot. And in the state of Florida, Another one, Ron DeSantis, was doing the same thing, and he lost a whole lot of his own voters. But that's the short-term thinking. And that's kind of this crazy thinking because it doesn't have a long-term strategy. It has a get-rich-quick strategy, sort of like P.T. Barnum in government.
Interesting. Well, I didn't realize that I could just, because I've worked at a lot of high-level, like European Command or U.S. Army Europe Central Command. I've been in lots of SCIFs. I wasn't aware that I could just take out top secret classified information and leave it at my house and then refuse to cooperate when they want it back. I think if I did that, I would be in handcuffs and tossed into Fort Leavenworth very, very quickly. And I think most anybody in the military would tell you the same thing. So this has been a bit mind-blowing. Whatever loopholes exist that allow this to happen without immediate, it's just the whole thing is beyond me. But
well, let's jump into your book here because you and I could go down a rabbit hole forever and have the best time in the world. But you're on here really, we want to share your expertise and also make your book available to people so that they can understand how we got to where we got today, which is what you speak about and what we can do about it in the future. Most importantly, as people feel absolutely dejected and truly hopeless with madness happening around the globe, whether it's in Hungary, Poland, Russia, here in the United States, starting up in Canada. Haiti is just on fire as we speak. It's along with the California wildfires. Just everything is going nuts, but there is a way through. Let's talk about radicalization. What does it take for some normal person to suddenly go haywire like this?
Well, that's the thing. It's usually not instantaneous. And a mistake a lot of liberals make, and I say this with an olive branch, they tend to think of things in very black and white ways. They think like, extremists are one category, then there's good people. And it's really much more nuanced. There are some hardcore firebrand extremists. There are some people that are outright hateful, but most people who get radicalized do so gradually. They don't believe they're being radicalized. And a lot of it involves algorithms, echo chambers, being fed the same ideas. And we talked about this before, and the book talks about it. The human brain is hardwired by evolution to try to filter out counter evidence and look for things that confirm a belief. So the brain doesn't want to be wrong. The brain wants to seek out confirmation of belief, confirmation bias. So that wishful thinking, that engine of belief in our minds, allow people to sort of go deeper and deeper down these rabbit holes, and then they're selectively exposed to more and more of these narratives. And this radicalization starts with very benign things. We see it now with a resurgence of Holocaust denial and conspiracies about Jews, the same stuff that's been around for a while. And they say, well, if we're being lied to about this or that, what else are we being lied to? Then they go down these rabbit holes and talk about deeper and deeper conspiracies. But a lot of it also is about this kind of binary us versus them thinking, where the only way to preserve someone's way of life, their identity, their sacred freedom is through pathways of violence. And a lot of people at January 6th, there were some there that I think were genuinely hateful, but some truly believed, they really believed that the election was stolen and that their republic or their country was in danger. And they actually were acting on that belief. And I remember a decade or two ago, it was liberals who had a hard time understanding that a lot of Islamic extremists really believed what they were doing. It wasn't just culture and socioeconomics. There were people that believe in paradise and martyrdom and will fly planes into buildings. Now we see a lot of conservatives, everyday conservatives, not even extremists, just everyday people, failing to realize that a lot of these people really are extreme. They really do believe what they're doing, and it is dangerous, and beliefs can have violent consequences. And we need as patriots, as people who love the principles this country was founded on, we need to think outside the left-right divide and try to create kind of a backstop or a barrier, a buffer against this, and speak out, and do so by finding shared moral terrain. And I think that's something veterans can help us do.
Let's jump into that. We heard earlier from Ron Kovic talk about a superhero, a movie, a person about whom an Oscar-nominated movie was made, Golden Globe winner, born on the 4th of July, starring Tom Cruise. He is vociferous about the fight for peace, the mission for it, and the reasonableness of it, and the sanity of it. Yet, as you point out, and it is true, people, the Kardashians are not clear about, is the earth round or flat anymore. Even if they're just joking, it gets out, gets 10 million likes. And guess what? A month of studying Copernicus and Sir Isaac Newton in school? Well, people are not sure anymore, and they're 14 years old, and there's no Walter Cronkite to bring sanity back into the room and give an idea. So we have something called QAnon, for instance. You write about that. Totally fabricated, but real as hell for people.
Well, I think that's I think it's chapter 3 or 4, but basically I think that QAnon is literally more unrealistic than the plot of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. Like, there's more chance of you actually finding Molaram, doing human sacrifice in a lava cave than there is of QAnon being true. There's so many points where QAnon falls apart as a coherent belief system. In fact, I think the plot of all 4 Lethal Weapon movies put together would be more likely than QAnon. The thing is, a lot of people think, well, if you believe in QAnon, it must be because you're bad or you're stupid. That's not true. Plenty of intelligent, smart people buy into conspiracies because smart people are better at rationalizing, beliefs and false beliefs often than other people because they're better at doing the mental gymnastics. Their brain's better at fishing for that evidence that confirms their beliefs. So the thing is, most people who follow QAnon, they're not malicious. They don't actually believe the full. It's like Scientology. There's layers to it. Like, there is a neo-Nazi version of QAnon where the Jews are behind a shadowy cabal, and it looks like the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, which was promoted by Adolf Hitler and the Nazis, right? But most people who believe in QAnon, they're not following that version. They're following a much more benign version. It's like a spectrum. There's your Walmart shopper version of QAnon, which is like, sex trafficking's real, Epstein's real, they're hiding stuff, and it's evil, and there's stuff we don't know, and we need to stop it. And I agree with all of that. That's actually true. There is stuff we don't know, and there are some terrible things going on. And then they get pulled a little more into it. So it's a spectrum, but where it's dangerous is it has radicalized people to violence. And the book lists tons of examples where QAnon is actually tangibly a dangerous belief. And the main example is, imagine actually believing, and this is where beliefs matter, believing that your next door neighbor was not only a pedophile, but engaging in sex slavery and child trafficking. And you believe that there's nothing the government could do about it. None of the agencies will ever find out. It's deep state, it's secret, and your neighbor is actually doing human trafficking with children. You would be morally obligated to stop him or her. In fact, you could argue you would want to kill that person if you really truly believe this. Now imagine fully believing that everyone from Tom Hanks to Ellen DeGeneres to Hillary, Nancy Pelosi, half of Hollywood and the Dems are literally engaged in this Temple of Doom scenario.
It's always Hillary at the top. Let's just admit it.
Of course. Yeah, right. I mean, and so, if you really believe that, that can lead people to go on a shooting spree. The Pizzagate was an example promoted by Jack Posobiec, and that radicalized a shooter who actually did fire off, a weapon in a restaurant. So
we're going to jump into how propaganda actually works, because I think that's a real educational component. Let me just reintroduce you. We are live streaming, by the way. If you go to rethinkingheroes.com, you can see John Kirbow, who's with us right now, a former PSYOPS specialist in information warfares and counterinsurgency. His expertise, propaganda and domestic terrorism. He served in Iraq and Afghanistan, even in Space Force, not the cartoon version, now focused on helping veterans find better pathways to continue to serve here at home. He's got a new book called Combating Domestic Extremism, a post 9/11 war veteran's perspective, and it's the ultimate manual on military propaganda and our own regular media propaganda, including QAnon, social media, etc., and how our own general population is being radicalized and hoodwinked by techniques we first became familiar with in the Middle East. And John Kirbow, let's talk a little bit about propaganda and how that works and why we believe this stuff. We all studied World War II, even if it were for 5 minutes, and we learned to know about this stuff. Yet, boy, do we eat it like a delicious meal.
Yeah, well, it does taste good. It tastes good to the reward chemicals in the brain, and it often feels good to believe something. The brain literally often releases pathways of reward chemicals when you confirm a belief. And so you're right, World War II, Madison Avenue and advertising took from the same playbook of psychology and marketing that was used by both, the Allies in World War II and by Joseph Goebbels. So it's sort of like, I use the analogy, the Force in Star Wars. PSYOP is like the Force. It's not good or evil, but you could tap into it and use it. And unfortunately, we have way too many Sith and not enough Jedi to counter the propaganda. What you can say is like
turning a lot of us on with the Star Wars metaphors.
Well, I could use a Harry Potter. We went to JFK Special
That's
Forces.
right.
We do Special Forces and PSYOP. I mean, that's like our Hogwarts, right? But propaganda, you're just propagating a message. But what PSYOP does is you identify a target audience and understand the best ways to reach and influence them to affect a kind of behavioral change. What are the best pathways to target their psychological vulnerabilities and nudge them in the direction? And a big way this happens, especially in propaganda, whether it's far left, far right, or Islamist propaganda, it's what I call ideological pickup art. And what I mean by that is, it's like when you go to a bar and you lie to someone because you want to get laid. Basically, they mirror back people's value systems and they speak their moral language. So if it's far left propaganda, that, for example, Hamas weaponizing concepts like anti-colonialism and social justice and liberation, these are concepts people can identify with, but they often use them to create a point of entry into the brain by mirroring someone's belief system to promote a more radical militant agenda. Same thing with the far right. They speak the language of patriotism, love of the military, the Constitution. These are all good things, but that resonates with people who identify with those things. They'll say, well, they talk like me. They're speaking my moral language, so they must be good people. This is why a salesperson would put on a Southern accent. If I'm calling you and I'm actually originally from Georgia and I'll say, hey, how you doing? And I talk like that, you're going to think, well, that's one of my people. I identify with him more, right? So,
they say at Goldman Sachs, know your audience.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
And the top salespeople, they'll put on dialects and accents, talk like this if they're in Alabama, where the frozen embryo has Second Amendment rights, First Amendment rights. And by God, you get right through the door and immediately you can sell that vacuum cleaner. Let's take a look, John Kirbow, because you do talk in your book about the kind of the plot of the play. It's not that it's just happening, but there's sort of an end game here. And somebody's paying for this stuff. Somebody wants something in the end with all of us to be knuckle-walking Hispidulite nitwits. Like, there's a payoff to that. It just doesn't happen. Okay, look at that. Look at the people under Mr. Ringling's big top going for the bearded lady. There's a reason they want us to go for the bearded lady. Talk about that a little bit.
Well, okay, this is a big thing. So I'd say the most popular or the most well-known voice talking about this right now would be Andrew Tate. When he talks about the deep state or he talks about the matrix, they're influencing us, right? And people talk about this from different angles. So Andrew Tate is not the first one to talk about this. People back in the 60s, the New Left movement, the One-Dimensional Man by Herbert Marcuse, talking about how we're kept in this sort of world of propaganda. They shape our opinions. They nudge us in different directions. So people have been talking about this for ages. Do I think there's a central string-pulling organization or a centralized plot that we're in an actual matrix in that way? No, I don't. I'm not saying it's impossible. I just don't see enough evidence for that. What we do see is different sources of influence. So, you have corporate propaganda, you have special interests, you have people that want to persuade us to accept the status quo in healthcare with, unlivable wages. It's not all coming from a single Palpatine puppet master in the Death Star, but I think they're using the same playbook, and but at the same time, you do have some more organized, systematic campaigns coming from abroad, most notably from Russia, and they use the same information warfare process that we use as well. It's just they're doing it for different reasons. And the thing is, when someone's in the troll factory in Siberia, you have some drunk Russians on vodka that are spitting out memes to pretending to be a veteran's mom, white conservative lady talking to people in Idaho, and then a fake Black Lives Matter account and a fake, Islamist account, a fake neo-Nazi account. Like, these are all run by a lot of the same people. These people are usually not the high-level planners. What the high-level planners do is they identify the objective, like undermine the NATO alliance, promote ethno-nationalist movements and separatist movements to break apart Europe and weaken it. Divide and conquer based on COVID. Even during the, I think it was the 80s, the idea that the AIDS virus was designed to kill people of color. Can you guess which country was pushing that? It starts with an R and rhymes with Prussia. So I'll give you a hint. So this is the point is they identify these objectives, then they look at their target audiences and they understand, these high-level information warfare planners understand how conservatives think, how liberals think, how student activists and protesters think. They understand how to get into your head, hack your value system, and use their ideological pickup art to sweet talk you with their different, their use of moral psychology and saying the right words, using the right symbols, Molin Labe, gung-ho, guns, God, church, or for liberals, egalitarianism and social justice. They will weaponize these things and to then nudge that target audience in the direction they want. What they then do, they give the scripts and the messages to the trolls behind the computer who then crank them out. So it's a sustained messaging campaign based on detailed analysis of audiences and how to get in their head, and then the symbols to use and the way the messages are framed, and then how to push it out over social media. This is all deliberate. I mean, there's a lot of random trolls as well. And, most propaganda is just random. It's not like organized, but the organized campaigns are very systematic. And so if we learn this playbook, we can harden ourselves and protect ourselves far more than any amount of guns or bunkers ever can. Because if you can hack someone's mind, if your mind is a vulnerability, that's a weak point. And this should appeal to everybody across the left-right spectrum.
What a great way to end, John Kirbow. Thank you so much for joining us. You can see how well he speaks extemporaneously. Imagine how he writes. That's why his book is so worth reading. If you want the Machiavellian manual, this is the one. John Kirbow, former PSYOPS specialist in information warfare, counterinsurgency, expertise in propaganda and domestic terrorism, served in Iraq and Afghanistan, now focused on helping our veterans find better pathways to continue serve here at home, adapting their skills in much needed ways. His new book, Combating Domestic Extremism, a post-9/11 war veterans perspective, and it's the ultimate manual on military propaganda and how our own general population is being radicalized by techniques we first became familiar with in the Middle East and certainly had a hand in. Let's just admit that, shall we?
We are in complete control. We are
Rethinking Heroes with Cary Harrison. RethinkingHeroes.com.
Everybody wants cheap airfare, but where do you find it? You call low-cost airlines. They specialize in cheap flights, discount hotel rooms, cheap car rental rates, and with a best price guarantee. If you want the lowest prices on your airline tickets or other travel services, call now. That's right, call. That's the only way to get these rates. Experts are standing by 24/7 to get you the cheapest airfare and hotel rates available. So don't wait. Call now.
Are you juggling multiple tools to run your online business? Well, thankfully, there's a better way, and it's called Kartra. Kartra. With Kartra, boosting your income has never been easier. That's because it's the ultimate all-in-one platform for online success, offering every tool you need to grow. Imagine building pages, funnels, courses, autoresponders, and checkouts all in one place for one affordable price. And the best part about Kartra is that you can automate anything. So it's like having a team of experts working around the clock to help you earn more. Ready to streamline and scale? Well, visit rethinkingheroes.com/money for a free 30-day trial. That's rethinkingheroes.com/money for a free 30-day trial.
Attention homeowners. Do you have a house that's in need of serious repairs? Do you have tenants that never seem to make their monthly payments? Do you have code violations, past due taxes, or maintenance costs you just can't afford? Then call our special home buying hotline right now. We specialize in buying any home no matter the situation. Turn that problem property into cash today. It's just that simple. One call and you can get rid of that home headache forever. We can buy your home with instant closings, instant cash, and huge savings. Plus, there's no realtor fees, no listing fees, and no repair costs. Just cash in your hands for that painful property. We're buying a few more homes in your neighborhood right now, so take advantage of this cash offer and call the number on your screen today. Don't call a plumber, don't call an electrician. Call right now and for as low as $1 a day. Many things that run your house are covered with thousands of technicians all over America. You can call us with a plumbing problem, an electrical problem, and we'll be in your home in no time at all with a solution to fix it. You don't need an expensive repair bill and you don't need to buy new expensive appliances. We'll show you how to fix it for about $1 a day.